Welcome to Nomad Media, Automotive Tales, where we tell vehicle stories, a little bit of history, and some unique and personal experiences. Let's get right into it. All right, for today we have the 1948 Dodge B1-D one-ton wrecker. Once again, the Evers Motor Company truck. You know, I've talked about this in the first part. You know, it's a truck that means a lot to our family. I've tracked it down over the years. We're all excited to have it back and everything, and you know, it's such a cool thing. You know, we just see it and we love it. Like, we just like to see it. And today I've got Matt Evers with me. Most people know him as Nub, so that's how most people probably refer to him as. You know, I got him with me here today. He's going to tell some of his recollection on the truck, you know, and we're just going to have a little conversation about it.
All right, well, this is our granddaddy's truck. For my whole childhood, this is the truck I remember being in the back of our shop up at the car lot, and a lot of memories with it. And I remember growing up and taking rides with our granddaddy. I was maybe 3 feet tall at the time. I remember riding in it in the floorboard, playing with my Hot Wheels and micro machines, if you know what that is. And we'd take trips, you know, going to pick up cars that were out of service or wrecked or whatever, you know, and bring them back to the shop. And a lot of history with this truck, and I'm glad to see it back in the family. You know, I remember telling you about it a few years ago when I learned that it still existed, because before then I thought that the truck was probably wrecked or crushed or whatever happens to them when they get old. And let's see, I guess it was back, I don't know, by the time I got out of high school and started getting financially stable, which was maybe 20 some odd years ago. I remember trying to search for this truck. And there was a guy in Davil there who was a friend of the family, who told me that he knew that the truck still existed. So that put me kind of on the search for it, and found out that a guy locally had bought it. Our granddaddy sold it to a local wrecker company, and kind of got lost from there. And I've heard all kind of rumors over the years. You know, it's out at a wrecker, like museum, more or less. So I remember going up, taking trips to Chattanooga, because that's where the wreckers began. You know, back in the early 1900s. So I thought, well, that'd be a good place to start, and it's close. So I've taken several trips to Chattanooga and other parts of Tennessee, thinking might run into it in a museum, and how cool would that be?
And I think you mentioned about the two different types of wreckers here too. You've got the, we have a Werner here, I think.
Yeah, Weaver.
Weaver.
This one's a Weaver, and actually, Holmes, Ernest Holmes started the wrecker in Chattanooga, but he was an Alabama man. He was born in Alabama, and if I recall, it was Hobbs, Alabama.
In that Tennessee Valley area.
Yeah, up north. That's where he was born and raised, and then he moved to Chattanooga, and that's when he invented the first wrecker in 1913, I believe it was, in Chattanooga, and become known as the Holmes Wrecker. And that took off, you know, years later with other companies. So it was an Alabama man that actually started it, but people think he's a Tennessee man because he lived in Tennessee at the time. But anyway, check your facts on that and you'll understand. All right, so yeah, I went to Chattanooga, looking through the record museums, asking questions, couldn't get anywhere. One of the local guys in Dadeville here, that works at a body shop or owns the body shop, told me that he heard that it was down in Disney World as a prop. in one of their amusement rides. And it kind of made sense that they would take something as pretty as that truck was and as mint as it was at the time it was sold, to put it in a place like that, because that's what it deserved anyway. It was a museum or somewhere, you know, where it could be looked at. And
I mentioned this thing in my video, man, as it's a straight up time capsule.
oh
Like,
yeah,
still
no
got
doubt.
the Plymouth stickers on
Well,
it. It's still got the note from, you know, Pop on it.
yeah,
And like I mentioned it, it's like a straight up time capsule, and you're right. It could end up in a museum, like, and
well,
it'd be a perfect piece.
I
But
remember our granddaddy, every time we would go out on a wrecker call, service call, when we come back and pull it back into the shop, I can remember him out there with a rag, and me as a kid with a rag, helping him wipe the rain off of it. If there had slung up a little road debris, we were wiping it down. Back there on the back where the flaps are, where the rubber is, where you hook to a bumper, wiped it down. You know, he was that particular about his trucks, and or any vehicles actually.
it's probably because this was a
And
brand new vehicle as well when you got it. Like,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. But he was like that with anything. It didn't matter. You know, he oiled it, uh, kept everything up to par. And I can remember wiping it down and all. And this was, I guess, 1991 is when he sold it. After we did our research, that sounds about right, because I'd have been
Yeah,
just turning a teenager at that time.
it's a give or take, because it's at the end of the year. It could have been
Yeah.
92. It's 91
Well,
or
I remember
92.
being somewhere around 13, I believe, when he sold it. And I didn't think nothing about it then, because you're young, you're a kid, you know, it's just another truck being sold.
It's before you could drive too. So
But going back to the uh, Disney World thing, after I heard about all that, I remember making up an excuse on, hey, let's take the kids to Disney World, and told my wife, we're going to take them out of school a day early and go down there and spend the weekend, let them have some fun. And that's about 2011. And we went down there, and I remember going on about every ride I could. And when the wife and kids were walking one way, I would ask people that worked there, hey, do you have any amusement rides or any place, you know, that might hold this wrecker? It's not going to be hard to remember, hey, there's a tow truck sitting somewhere. So never got anywhere on that, you know, but I did search for 20 plus years trying to locate it just to see if it still existed. And as time went on, I'd kind of given up on it. And then I remember mentioning it to you, and we had a little talk about it, and you said, well, I'm going to search for this thing. And I remember being excited, because when I was looking for it, there was no phones, there was no real internet, at least not in my life. And so I thought, well, you're real computer savvy, you know, you liable to track it down. So I was thrilled to hear about it,
and you
and
know,
still didn't know it existed until your brother told me that one day, you know, a guy stopped in that actually owned the truck.
and you know, when you told me about it too, that's the first I'd ever heard about this record. Like, I
Yeah,
didn't
and
know
I
it
was
existed
surprised
either.
by that. I thought you knew.
Yeah, I didn't know. So
But yeah, we got to, well, you got to looking for it, and actually, however you went about it, I remember, you know, somebody told you, you know, whatever happened, happened, but you ended up finding it. And I remember that just brought tears to my eyes, just knowing that it still existed when I saw the pictures and it actually had the same logo that was hand painted on it, you know, back in the late 40s. It was just unbelievable.
I
And
remember when I told you, man, like, quite literally, I remember the look on your face, and like,
yeah,
I was like, I will say
it was a
this.
Kodak moment, I'm sure.
I was a little hesitant on like telling you where I found it too, because I was like, let me finish tracking it down totally before you jump in. Like, I knew you wouldn't do anything wrong, but it's like that nervousness of like, hey,
Yeah, I wanted it in the family real bad, because
I knew how much you wanted it, so that's what made me nervous. Because I was like,
yeah,
hey, don't let it slip through our fingers here by any dumb luck or dumb
yeah, this
stroke of.
truck's priceless to me. You know, no matter what it would have costed, we would have got it back. You know, if I had to take a lien out on my house, we was gonna get this truck back one way or another. So I'm real happy to see it. I'm glad it worked through. I'm very thankful for the people that owned it before that gave you the opportunity to get it back. I mean, that was awesome. For them to allow it to come back to the family, and it really means more than anybody can imagine, because it's not just a truck. You know, this is a family member, as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned, because I've known this truck more than most of the people in my life. You know, and to know that my granddaddy sat right there beside me in it, you know, still chokes me up. It's a great piece of history, and it's almost like having our granddaddy with us right now, and knowing it come from his dad. You know, it's just I just hope it's something that never ever gets away from us again. You know.
As far as I'm concerned, since I've tracked it down, and yes, it is in my name right now, as far as I'm concerned with this truck, this is an Evers family truck. And I tell you, you know, with everything, like we've got so much support, like stuff that you haven't heard about yet, because I don't think you've talked to Charles yet, which is it's my first cousin once removed. So I think he's probably the same for you because you're
Right.
my first cousin. So I don't think you talked to Charles yet. Charles is over the moon about this truck. Like, so we've actually got a lot of support for it too. And as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned, this is an Evers family truck. Yes, I own it. Big whoop. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, like you, Charles, just anybody would want to take it out for spin one day or whatever, you know, take it to a show, whatever. As long as I know that it's like, hey, I'm a car guy, so it's like I understand, like most people aren't going to drive this truck to shows. I know me and you will.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, you know, if it was something that someone wanted to take to a show in our family or whatever, show it off, just drive it around, whatever it may be. I don't have any issues with that personally. Like, take it out, like once everything is kind of, you know, once I've driven it around enough to say, hey, put a stamp of approval, it's a good running driving, which so far so good, like I don't have any complaints, then I'll probably start leaving a key at the shop, or at least wherever it's at, so that people can access it.
Well,
Like,
I'm just happy to be able to see it parked back in its position, and to be able to sit in it every once in a while.
and
That right there is good enough to me.
and saying that too, it'll never be out of the Evers family as long as I'm alive. Like,
Yeah.
it'll, like, whether it passes to
It'll
me
be
through,
over our dead bodies.
yeah, whether it passes from me to someone else through
Yeah.
a transaction, or whether I just gift it to someone, like, it's gonna stay in the Evers family. But
Yeah, well,
like,
that's where it belongs, you know, because
yeah,
this is a family member in some ways. You know, it's very sentimental to me. Probably not as much to others, but, you know, to me, I've got a lot of history with this truck and a lot of memories with our granddaddy that can't even look at it without thinking,
I've
you
made
know, of a
some
few things.
I've made some jokes here with it, like, you know, uh, as some of the viewers may know, it's like I have the Dodge Charger, like, and every now and then it stays in the shop, whatnot. It hasn't been since I bought this, but
Yeah.
that Charger though, sitting in the shop, I've made jokes. I'm like, you know, if I had this truck, my Charger, and then even my other truck lined up at the shop, all in the back, and the shop, I hope this never happens, knock on wood, you know, it caught fire and it burned down the place. I'm like, I've told people, I'm like, the Charger may be nice. I'm sorry, it's going down with the ship. This
Yeah.
truck though, it's going out through the
Yeah,
wall.
well, you're
I'm
saving a
like,
family member right here, you know.
yeah, I'm like, with this truck though, the joke
Yeah.
is like, whether I can get it out the door or not,
Yeah.
it's going out the wall. Because
Yeah.
it's not going to
That's
burn in
right.
the building. Like, it's going to get out. Like,
That's right.
so,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I'm very glad that you found it and that you got it. Kind of disappointed it wasn't me that tracked it down after all these years, but just to have it back, you know, that means more than anything to me. You know, it's a real big deal. I can't be happier. You know.
Yeah, hopefully we can get all your kids. My is it second cousin, I guess? Like, if they're your kids, I guess they're my second cousins or something. But hopefully we can get all of them one day at least interested enough to drive it
Oh,
around.
they're interested now. You know, the biggest thing is teaching the younger generation to drive a stick shift.
Yeah, and
You know,
then
which
teach
I
them how
have
to
been
drive
working
an
on that.
80-year-old stick shift.
But I've got a couple around the house that they can practice on. It's just getting them off their computers and whatnot
We'll get them in it at some
get
point.
in it. But they have been practicing. I told them it's a big deal. They understand. You know, they've grown up with me, and I'm a car guy, and it's just like me growing up with our granddaddy.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I'm really into cars the way I am, and probably you too, is because of him.
Yep.
You know, going up there and watching him change his oil, work on stuff, riding this on service calls. You know, I grew up with it, and I developed a love for it. And like I said before, growing up in my era, you didn't have phones, you didn't have games. We barely had a TV.
You had your Hot Wheels.
You had your Hot Wheels, and then as I got a little older, you had micro machines, which are miniature versions of Hot Wheels. And
I'll be looking something.
and that's basically all you had, you know. And then some action figures came out down the line. But anyway, I always liked the Hot Wheels because it's like, hey, I've seen this on our car lot, you know. So it made me want to go to the store and buy that, you know, with my allowance. And that's developed a love for cars. And I own probably more than what I should. Some of them running, some of them not, and a lot of projects, but the ones that don't run have just as much value and meaning to me as the ones that do run, some of them more so. And I credit all that to my granddaddy. You know, all my car knowledge I credit to my granddaddy, you know. And,
He got me started in it too, and some of the viewers probably know that, you know, they know me pretty well at this point, I guess. He got me pretty well on the way as well. Like between him and Roy, which I don't think you know him, but you know, on the other side of the family.
Yeah, your grandfather on the other side.
Yeah, Roy, he's who taught me electrical, and I say Pop, Lamar, he's the one who taught me mechanical.
Yeah.
And if you check out today, it's like I'm a mechanical engineer that works as an electrical engineer by title. So
Couldn't be any better, man.
it's like it runs right up in there.
That's awesome though, you know. I mean, not many people can say that they have that in their life. You know, most people grow up and never know how to change a light bulb or even change the oil in the car, you know. So we've got it. I look at it as being blessed in a lot of ways, just by being around the people we've been around and learning what we know.
Stuff we got to experience.
That's right. That's what it's all about. And you know, this thing right here, it's just awesome to have it. You know, awesome to see it. I can't wait to drive it. Hadn't drove it yet.
Yep.
I'm
Still
not
got some
too eager
shakedown.
about it because I'm still soaking it in, the fact that it exists and it's here. You know.
Well, it'll be ready by the time you get ready, like, because I'm shaking it down more than most people would imagine right now.
Well, it seems to run awesome. You took me on a ride in it earlier, and I couldn't be more happy with how it's running. You know, it's all just kind of, well, I'm in this disbelief on how well the truck has been kept. You know, most people would have just left it out for the elements to get it. But this truck is in awesome shape, and apparently is taking other people as way as took us, you know, as far as like when you see it, you want to preserve it. And wherever it's been for the last 20, 30 years, those people have also thought the same.
So I have a little bit of info on that, not much, but like from what I've done on digging, I think this truck is up to about 7 owners right now. 3 of those being us.
Wow.
You know, so we've got the original, as far as I'm aware, Charles Evers, like our great grandfather.
Right.
We've got Lamar Evers. Then we've got the record service in town in Dable. And then from them, they went to Atlanta with it somewhere. It's like North Atlanta, North Georgia.
So it never went down south that you know of?
Not that I know of, but so it went somewhere in North Atlanta, and from there, that guy, so that's the 4th owner. The 4th owner, according to your dad, was like a prop guy for movies.
Okay, so
And
it did go to stuff like that.
So it stayed parked in a collection basically with him,
Yeah.
and it was
And that
meant.
was in Atlanta?
It was somewhere in North Georgia.
Okay.
So it's supposed to
So
be.
it didn't go down south for that.
Yep.
Well, it may have gone down
There's
south
no.
to being a prop then.
There's no guarantee on any of this though. So it's
Yeah.
like this is just kind of the story I've
Okay.
gotten. It never was in a
See,
movie.
my dad even never told me that.
It was never in a movie, so it never went down south for a movie. But and I'm glad it didn't. I've mentioned this a couple of times.
Rust would have got it
Well,
if it
that,
stayed there long enough.
and I doubt that this sign would have survived because they would have repainted it, refurbished
Possibly.
it to some level. But from there, from that movie prop, so that was a majority of the 20 years you were looking for it, from my understanding. Within the last, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 years, when I was looking for it, it went from that prop guy to a farm. And it was used as a farm truck, which it didn't have any brakes, which is funny based on the information. Now I can guarantee you it didn't have any brakes. I can guarantee that. And it was because it had no fluid in it. But it had no brakes, and so the guy just used it to piddle around his farm because it wouldn't stop. So where are you supposed to get out on the road at? Even going as slow as it does, it's like you couldn't stop it. Then from him, went to that dealer. I'm not going to mention him, but went to that dealer, and then it went to Texas to the guy that we got it from, and then it's back to us. Now, I don't know the farm. The farmhand was a hand-me-down story that I got from the guy I bought it from. So that's where the assumption comes, but it's about 7 owners.
Well, it's lucky to make it through that. If it went to a farm, I'm surprised the boom is on it. I'm surprised anything's left like it is.
I'm surprised it wasn't a flatbed.
Yeah, if it had stayed on the farm very long, that's exactly what it would have become.
Yep. But just so you have a little bit more knowledge.
Yeah,
too,
well, I wasn't aware of that, but I did get the rumors about it being in props and movie scenes and such as that. And I always assumed after I saw that still on there that they must have used it as if it was going in the movie to get a car off the road or whatever.
Hero vehicle.
Yeah, right. So, anyways, I'm glad to see it back. It's not a whole lot more I know about it.
Well, how about you tell us about this light?
Oh yeah, I guess you noticed the light.
How about you tell us about this light here?
Yeah, this is one of the things that I found.
You can hold it up here. I'll take close-up pictures of it,
About 20 years ago, or whatever, when I started looking for this truck, I came across this sitting on a shelf in the back of the shop. And this is kind of what reignited my fire for this truck 20 plus years ago. When I found this, it reminded me that this truck may be out there. So I've had this ever since sitting on my mantle to remind me.
And if anyone's questioning, that's the original cab light for this truck.
Because back before, well, when this truck was made, all lights that vehicles had a red light. I mean, if you look back in the old movies, like police cars, ambulances, whatever, they had a red light like this on top. Some of them spun, some of them went side to side, whatever. There's different types of that, but they had the red lens. In 1964, the reason it's got the amber light, in 1964, they passed a law for only fire trucks to carry the red light for their emergency dispatch. So all other non-emergency vehicles went to the amber, and at that same time, police went to blue, so that's how that began, 1964. So that's when the amber light got put on top of this cab, and for some reason they saved this one and stuck it in the corner in the shelf, and it still, to this day, looks brand new. I mean, there's no rock chips on it.
I'm just thinking.
The dust is still on there from back then. I've never even cleaned it. But I've always had this set up as a reminder, hey, that truck's out there, don't forget about it.
Well, now we know where it's at.
That's
out there.
right.
Still out there, but at least we know where it's at now because it's sitting in a safe spot.
So I brought this to give back to you and thought that if you might want to you know, knowing that this truck's not going to go down the road with the lights working again, I thought you might would want to put that on there, or at least in there.
Maybe as a show prop. I
You
definitely will
know,
show it off.
yeah,
But
because most trucks you see at car shows, if they're pre-64, they have that original light still on it. So
and
I thought
really,
that might be a cool
really
thing
thank
to
you
do.
for it. Like it's gonna
You know,
stay in the truck. It might stay in the glove box when it's at
well
shows. Of course, it'll come out.
that's a sign when you see that on a vehicle, you know it's pre-60s.
Yeah.
You know, for the people that don't really know their vehicles, they're like, "Why is that red?" It starts a conversation.
Well, when we're
You
showing it,
know,
it'll
so
definitely be out there. You know,
yeah,
like when it's showed, it'll definitely be sitting with old Belmont Lamar's toolbox. It'll be
yeah,
there with the Chrysler Plymouth
yeah.
granite
That's what
plaque.
that
It'll
truck
be
would
with
have come
this.
with.
So it'll definitely be there. I greatly appreciate it, man.
Well, I'm just glad it finally found its place, because
This
I
is
have been
cool.
waiting a long time to find the rest of the piece of that puzzle. You know,
The rest of it, and,
so
and it's all in one piece too.
that's it. It's unbelievable. I mean, still, I had to pinch myself sometimes. You know, and like I said, you've got this truck. You've had it for a few months now, and I mean, I still get choked up when I go up to the shop now, and I see it parked back there. It's like I had to catch myself, you know.
Yep.
I get choked up and think, you know, my granddaddy ought to come out them doors, you know, and walk to the back. But,
If only.
yeah, but at least it brings back that memory for me, because those are wonderful memories, and you know, that truck has hauled a lot of vehicles.
Yep.
You know,
And I can't tell you as well. So this is something that I'm not sure you caught on. That day that it was delivered, or the day we were doing the whole showing outside. You know, I had a fella come up to me. I was still talking to the guy from the Dable Record Alexander City Outlook. I was still talking to him. He says, this was the most, like, I never thought that this would be the sentence that gets me. He said, is this the truck? And he put that emphasis on it. And I was like, holy crap. Holy crap.
yeah,
But I've had a lot of people come up to me saying they remember it too. Like
yeah.
people in town, in Dable, remember this truck.
Well, there's a lot of people that have passed, and I wish they was around. You know, Mr. Ward, he was one of them that always loved our granddaddy and our family, and was a long time family friend. And he's one that always had some good insight, you know, to tell me where to look for it, and such as that. But he's passed now, and I know if he was alive, he'd probably be about as choked up as me to see this truck, you know.
So, you know, you told me you had some facts about this truck, like pertaining to the war and stuff. And you know, whether people know it or not, our granddad, got to get out. I'm talking to Evers
Yeah,
here.
that's right.
It's like our granddad was a bomber fighter pilot, and you found some interesting facts. Like, how about you share that before we lead out here?
Well, yeah, a few facts that I know about it are, when this truck was designed, 1948 to 1953, was the B series. And for this series, they came out exclusive to Dodge, Dodge only. They had the pilot house cab and the airplane shocks because of the post-war. Everything was designed kind of off, you know, the Navy and the Army back then. So what they did was raise the cab up a little bit so that you would have a bigger point of view through the windshield. And if you look at the design of the windshield and look at the design of the old airplanes, they had that two-piece window. And I know that Ford and other vehicles came off of that later on, but it was exclusive to Dodge for airplane shocks on this. So the shocks that are on this truck were exclusive to the Dodge brothers only, and were from actual airplanes that were like 47 models and whatever, you know, that same design and all.
Talk about
So it gave it more comfort, since the truck was a little heavier, you know, in these year models. It probably gave them a little bit better ride. And our granddaddy, see, he was in the Navy, which back then they didn't have Air Force. You either had Navy or Army. And he flew in the back of a plane as a gunner. He was the guy at the bottom of the plane shooting, and I've even seen photos, I don't know where they are now, but where when he got back to where he was at and landed, there were bullet holes through the floor. You know, back then planes were so loud you couldn't hear anything. You didn't know what was going on until after the fact. And I remember a story he told me, there's actual bullet holes between his feet. You know, his feet went up like this in the little bubble he was in, and there was bullet holes in it. So it's kind of cool that he got a truck where the windshield and the shocks and all that was based off of airplanes from the war he was just in. So
you talk about getting ahead of the curve on technology too. If you
Yeah.
got the singular right to doing your shock system based on the military planes, like, well.
And that was only for Dodge.
Yeah.
You know, at that time.
Yeah.
You know, the others followed after, but.
That's a cool fact right there, man. Well, dude, man, thanks for taking the time to like actually sit down with me and talk to me about it. Like these stories, like
It brings back a lot of memories.
they need to be preserved and things, you know.
That's
So
right.
it's like that's what it's here for and everything. So thanks. You know, I'm glad you sat down and talked to me about it. But is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with, like, you know, just thinking on it now?
Well, just don't ever give up, you know, don't ever quit. You know, if you got that feeling something's out there that is a family history, you know, whether it means something to your family or not, if it means something to you personally, don't give up on it.
Man, I totally agree with you on it. Like, yeah, I've said it in a few different other episodes. I'm not sure that everybody gets to this final stretch, you know, but don't ever stop looking for what you really want, especially if it's something like this that you can find. But with that, we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
I'll see you at the next car show, okay?
All right, guys, there you have it. So be sure you go check out part 1 in the description below if you haven't already. And other than that, be sure you like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.